everyone. Good morning. My name is Alex Urgence Michelia, and welcome to the second episode of the Girl Child Education Podcast. It's been an interesting conversation. The first episode saw, the former Commissioner for Education, where we explored the state of education in Bauchi State, and we saw what we're doing and how she contributed to education during her tenure. But this episode is going to be very interesting. Why so? Because I have a very interesting guest with me. And we're here to have an filtered conversation, an honest conversation, a real conversation about the current state of education in Nigeria. If you've been following the news, you would know that Nigeria is currently leading with the highest number of school children, which is currently over 20 million. Very sad. This is a global rate. And we've seen how it has decreased from 10.5 over the years to now 20. It's alarming. And I'm wondering, why aren't we doing anything? Why is it easy for the government to set up a state of emergency in Rivers and not education in general? I mean, these are questions that have been on my mind, and I believe that, there are people like myself who have had this question on their mind. So just so we get to the juicy part of the conversation, I have here with me my interesting guest, like I mentioned earlier. Her name is Amina Usman, and she has been a powerhouse in Nigeria in terms of education, in terms of advocating for girls, in terms of ensuring girls are not left behind, a you know, enjoying the dividends of democracy in general. She is the current coordinator of she's the current coordinator of Forum for African Women Education and this FAWE. She's worked in Flight South before. So I'll just let her introduce herself so you can get to meet her and get into the juicy part of the conversation. So Amina, yeah, welcome.
Hello, thank you very much. Yes, so my name is Amina Usman, and I'm currently the National Coordinator at Forum for African Women Educationalists in Nigeria. So for Forum for African Women Educationalists is a Pan-African organization with our regional secretariat at Nairobi, Kenya. And here in Nigeria, we have presence in about 30 states plus the FCT. So I am heading the Nigerian chapter, yes, as the national coordinator. Yes, so what we do basically is to advocate for education for girls, most especially, and then empower women. Also, we influence policies, and then we've trained teachers in GRP, right, gender responsive pedagogy, and then there are school-related gender-based violence. Yes.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh wow. So you see that I said the right things before I even met her. Before you all of you met her. She's a powerhouse indeed. I mean, we're very pleased to have you. Inshallah, thank you for being here. You want to tap from your wealth of knowledge, hear from your experience, things that we cannot read on paper, or what has been happening, what's seen on field. Maybe drag the government here and there.
Don't good.
You, you see a woman who has done amazingly well. I mean, wouldn't you want your child to be like her? That is most of the conversations that we're having. Our project is not just limited to Bauchi. We also want to see every girl in the four worlds of the country get educated. That is why it's called a third type. So, I'll try to be very logical or diplomatic with my words because I have like a lot of things to say, a lot of very unfiltered questions to ask. But let's start from somewhere.
Okay.
How long have you been working in this space?
Okay, I think this is my 6th year.
Interesting.
Yes.
So you must have seen and unseen, and if
I've seen a lot.
trust a lot. So for what you have experienced over the years, it is safe to say that the government is desensitized, or are they just deliberately being different? Are they saying that they don't understand the depth of the decay in the education system in Nigeria, or do you think that they're just playing dumb? React in a better way.
So if you ask me, I will say that they choose to listen to what they want to listen to because we have been singing it, and of course they know, but they choose to to attend to what they will get their like instant praises on, like road, water, empowerment, sometimes just giving like a stipend to women, you understand, and then they get the instant praises at that moment. But when it comes to education, I don't know why they are getting more relaxed. Maybe because they are getting used to the noise that we have been making around it, or maybe they don't go to these hard to reach communities where they will actually see the people that need this education. So one can hardly tell where the problem is because we've made a lot of noise. We've made a lot of noise, like I said, yes.
Sorry I'm cutting you short, but someone even said that, if the rich and elite send your children to school abroad, do you really think you hear out
Exactly.
of public?
Exactly.
Because I want to believe that they see it. They've interacted with people in the classrooms. They see how these classrooms are badly dilapidated.
Yes. Sometimes we go to the extent of going to these communities, take photos, take videos, and then post on social medias for them to see. Should, in case they maybe choose to say they don't go there, they don't know, or people around them, they are supposed to report back to them, have not been reporting rightly. But still.
So I know that there is a conversation about increasing the budgetary allocations for education, to 15% because of being very poorly. And we saw how in 2024, I think just about 7%.
Yeah, 7.12, I guess.
Yes, allocated to education, which it was in fact very low compared to the sector spending. So for me, it still boils down to priority. If you're not even allocating, the government aren't even allocating adequate resources to education, how then can we tackle it? So my question to you now is, what do you think, going straight onto the conversation and to the point, what do you think the government needs to prioritize, right, for us to at least make headway in terms of reducing the rate of out of school children in Nigeria?
So I'll mention just three. First, let's prioritize empowering the teachers. Because if the teachers, who happens to be like the pioneer of the whole education itself, is not happy, if the teachers are not happy, so believe me, they will relax. There is no capacity building for teachers. Their salary, I guess, if I'm not mistaken, is the lowest. And then all the bonuses they are supposed to get, nothing is being done about it. If you can remember, mostly, especially the early years, the primary schools, they have tended to go on strike immediately after resumption. They'll be forced to cater. Yes. Yes, because they feel that is the only way they can call the attention of the government. You understand? So they have taken it to themselves that, okay, if you don't want to listen to me, you will listen to me when we are on strike. And these children are interrupted. They are learning, are being interrupted. Secondly, they need to visit more schools, more communities, most especially in the northern states, because of the high population over there. And then some communities are so far away from the school, you understand? So trekking, and then the insecurities. Because if there's insecurity along my way to the school, why will I allow my child to be exposed to such, you understand, insecurities just because she wants to go to school? So why can't education come to our community? If the government really cares about us, why can't the school come to our communities? There are informal schools like the ABEB, Accelerated Basic Education Program. There are a lot of programs that have been initiated by CSOs. So why can't that be implemented? It's all about maybe just writing policies. How about the implementation? And then thirdly, they also need to look at what we are saying, listen to the CSOs, collaborate with us so that we are not saying that we know it all, but we can guide, you understand, and sometimes even advise.
Interesting. And for me to wrap up your point, I know you've mentioned about strike culture, and I've heard this over and over again, where it's the annual event.
Exactly.
Tell me where people need to go that far to call the government's attention.
Because there is an NUT, Nigerian Union of Teachers. So if they can't be listened to, the teachers decided to go on strike, and you can't blame them.
And the children suffer.
And then there's the economic hardship going on. There's inflation, there's everything, but nothing is being done.
Right. You also spoke about recovery being underpaid. And in fact, there is shortage of teachers. We don't have adequate teachers. There are communities that will bring to Mbauchi and they tell you that there's only one teacher to say 400, 600 students. So tell me how that teacher is supposed to impact knowledge on these.
Exactly. And then recently I heard that the senior education board, say senior secondary school, no, secondary education board, that we have education officers there. And then they have just asked some of them to move back to classroom. And they are crying. They want to remain in the organization. You understand? They don't want to go back to the classroom. Why? Because they are not being treated fairly and well. So if they are being treated, they should be happy going back to the classroom. But no.
It's really sad. And for me, I'm glad that we're having this conversation because, like I said, this is not something that is abstract. The field, seeing it felt it, we've interacted with these girls. Before we go any further into the conversation for the day, we want to take a quick break and we'll join you back soon. Okay, so welcome back from the very short break. It was time for us to have our coffee and have a little chit chat off the camera. So just to piggyback from where we left, I know you were, talking about what the current reality is in terms of, strike culture, poor infrastructure, and the likes of it. But now I want us to get a little personal. You're a northern woman like myself. I take pride in being a northern woman, by the way. So I would like to ask you, I know that, when you look at the current route about school children, the North is always leading. It has always been so from time immemorial.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask you, do you really think that this is a cultural problem, or you think that this is just a convenient excuse for a system that has failed over and over again? That is one question that might not necessarily, you might not necessarily have an answer to, but it's going to lead us to the bigger question. And secondly, why are northern girls still being married off, instead of being educated? And the question is, who benefits from this? And another question is, I know that it's important for us to have traditional leaders, religious leaders in the conversation. So the question is, are their voices even captured? Do we engage them enough? Are they showing interest? Or are they even part of the problem? So you can answer all of this holistically and perhaps share your experience and, your engagements that, would give us a better light into the question that I asked.
You see, when it comes to North, right, northern states of Nigeria, a lot has been happening. People hear different things and they say different things. So from my experience, I will tell you that it's not just the cultural norm, right? The cultural, the religious, all that. It's not. Sometimes the convenience for the parents of a girl child. You understand? So sometimes when you look at the situation of of a family, the poor families in those communities, I mean hard to reach communities, right? You will see that they have no any other option than to engage their child, a girl child, into maybe selling, hawking and all that, just to augment what the family will feed on, right? So again, when you look at the situation whereby a girl child has come up to maybe age 10, 11, 12, and then they start speaking about how to marry her off, the reason is because they want to trade her to get just little penny of a dowry and then lift the burden of feeding her, yes, to her. And then they will usually tell you that by the time she's married off, the man becomes part of the family and he can help them as well. And unfortunately, these people, these men they married them off to, they are low income earners,
Right.
as themselves.
Right.
So tell me, are they not adding more burden to the man?
My people say if you're in pants to fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You understand? And then they believe that educating a girl child is a waste of resources, time, and all that. And also, they believe that when you allow a girl child to further her education, especially above secondary education, she becomes wayward. And then before you know it, there's illegitimate pregnancy and all that. So, what it all takes is just sensitization. You understand? Sensitization. If there are no schools in their community, bring school to their community. Bring informal schools to their community. If the scheduled time is not convenient for them because they need to go and look for what the family will feed on, schedule the timing. Instead of going from morning, you can just say afternoon schools. You understand?
Right. Let it be flexible.
Let it be flexible. For instance, sometimes when you demolish, maybe there are, like, I don't know what happened, but I'm going to give an instance of what happened, a situation here in Uye in Abuja. So they demolished a primary school in Uye and they moved them to Season 6. Imagine from Airport Road, there is a rural community there. Then transporting, you know us now, transporting 5, 6 children from Airport Road to Season 6 every day, back and forth.
This economy.
In this economy.
Tinubu's economy.
And then it was not even this hard. The economy was not this hard. So when we went for community outreach, we met this very beautiful Fulani family. They were all light in complexion. So beautiful to see, you understand? And then we asked, why are they not going to school? They said because they demolished a school that was very close to them before and now they can't afford. But we mentioned that there are buses, school buses. What they said, the bike, transportation of bike from their community to the main road. Yeah. And sometimes the student, the children, they miss buses. So as we speak at that moment, we were told that a particular girl that was just about 14 years is about to be married off. Why? Because she has stayed home for 2 years without going to school. And then, of course, the boys hovering around the community have developed interest and they have went to meet the family and they have all settled everything. Right there and then, we tried to convince the parents not to give up to that plan. Right. But it took us 3 visits for us to be able to convince.
You know, you're even lucky that they even listen to you.
So there are parents that would not. And when I say 3 visits, these are visits that will go and spend hours discussing. They were trying to convince us to understand with them why they need to marry her off. Because she has already outgrown the class. She was in primary 3 when she dropped out. Yes. And then she's already touching 14. You understand? But we told them that they should understand that you are never too old for education. You are never too old for education. And then as a child, because she's the first daughter of the family, that if she's not educated, how is she going to even make it in life? So that was, at the end, we succeeded and we enrolled her back to her former school, which is now in Use Zone 6. And as I speak to you, she has completed her primary education. She's now in JSS 3 in that same school because there is a primary section and a secondary school section. So you can imagine if we had not intervened at that,
she would have been a future.
Exactly. Probably now she will be having maybe about 3, 4 kids, or maybe even divorce because you know when situations arise, the man can just say Nasakiki.
Yeah. Or even his companion.
Yes, and just declare divorce 3 times at once. They do that a lot in communities.
You know, I mean, listening to you just makes me even angrier because I know that we have the habit of, you know, pointing fingers at the government, of which they are not to be exempted. They have a larger share of the responsibility. I mean, as a citizen of a country, I should have access to my basic needs and education should be my basic need. However, I'm also still forced to call our parents, you know, guardians, community. I feel like we're failing our children.
Of course.
Because, I mean, education starts from the house if you look at it, right? Why should a 13 or a 14-year-old or even a 17-year-old be married off? That's a child, you know. So that's to tell you that even the mindset of the parents, the guardians, the members of the community needs a lot of shifting, you know, and for some reason, like you said, in the North, it's very dicey because we always tend to tie it with religion, culture. It's there are conversations that are not, you know, easy to have. Now, my question is, what is the best approach, you know, when you're speaking to these group of people, you're trying to encourage them to send their girl child to school? What is the best approach for this kind of conversation, these hard conversations?
Yes, usually when we meet these people, especially when we go for community sensitizations, we usually go straight to the community head.
Okay.
Either the community head, religious leader, or the women leader, because there is so much listen to them. And they take their words for it. So we visit them, explain to them reason why we're there, and then make them understand that there is really so much to gain from education. We know it's such a long time process, but at the end of it, because even if they want at the end to become businessmen or women, they still need education. And I will also always tell them my personal story. I got married immediately after my secondary school. You know, my parents believed that, okay, after secondary school, you can just go and do a diploma. Of course, I did my diploma and then I was married off. But because of how my husband is, you understand, now I am pursuing my PhD degree. So getting married does not stop anybody.
You're bragging, you know, but you're bragging with
style. I am not.
I love
but I always tell them my story, that if I happens to be like them and I decided to have that kind of mindset of not valuing education, I'll probably be like sleeping at home. My husband will go to work. I'll tell him bye-bye. When he comes, I'll say welcome, you understand? And I'll depend on him. And then I'll not have voice, you understand, to speak to them whenever I visit the community. And you'll just like how you clap, they will clap. You understand? And then after the discussion, some of them will come and meet me. Is it really true? Of course, I will tell them it's true. I have 3 kids. And that does not stop me from furthering my education.
Right.
And of course, some people, you know, they will come off as, okay, I want to listen to your story. And I will tell them. And from there, they will be encouraged. You know, our northern women, how they depend on whatever the man says is a man's world. And then the man will come up and say, I have gotten a husband for our child. And right in their mind, they are not happy. But because they want to be obedient and all that, they will say, okay. Because even if they are to force the man or maybe cajole him or speak him out of that decision, they don't have the power. They don't have the financial power to send their kids to school. And then we've told them that it's a woman's world now. You understand? It's a woman's world now. It is actually, because women are paying a lot. And then whenever we are going out for such, we print pictures of Dora Akuyeli, people, women that are doing great in the nation, you understand? And then we tell them, these people, if they had been like them and they stayed back at home, their voices would not be heard. You understand? Right. And then those, some of our beneficiaries that have made it, you understand, that have succeeded, we tell them sometimes we go with them so that they will hear the stories from the real people. Right. Those are the things that we do. And then, when the government is ready, I believe that they should just start from the grassroots, not just stay back in their office and invite them. Let them visit these people. Let them go to those Kong areas, those Kong communities that you don't even know they exist. Right. And interestingly, we have this community in Abuja. Yes. You have them now. I tell you, there's a community that is called Disabled Colony. Where? Disabled Colony. Oh, what? In Hausa, it's Angwongoragu. People living in that community, 99% of them are living with one form of disability or the other. So you can imagine, there is a family, a particular family, the father, the two wives are all blind. Oh, blind. Yes. And then at that time, there was this intervention we did in that community with the former school using the ABE curriculum and all that. So their children were in our school, but we realized that the timing was not convenient for them because they need to take their parents as a guide to go and beg. So we needed to shift the timing back to when it's convenient for them. Because they depend on their kids to source for what they will eat. Because they are already disabled, they can't do anything. The only thing they depend on is begging. And you can't stop them from begging because that's their only source of income. Right. So using the children to beg, they have already spoiled the child. Yeah, if you are right, because they're exposed to so many. Whenever I drive along Wuse Road, you understand, those kids that sell slippers and all that, they are all our beneficiaries. You will hear them say, Auntie Amina everywhere. Exactly. So when you go back to that community, even their chief is also disabled. Nobody hears about them. Sometimes they say it's only when the election is near, that's when they will send a representative to either give them a bag of rice and all that. Kai. I mean, I feel so sad cutting you short because you've spoken so much. You've touched areas that we have not even delved into. Thank you for being very honest and being very unfiltered with what you shared. And we acknowledge your effort. Well done to you and your team for, trying to help girls to leave their comfort zone, which is what they've known over time, begging, and then now being educated. And I tell you, when you educate a woman, I know we hear it a lot and it sounds like a cliche, but it's in line with the conversation you had about a mother being educated. Then she has the authority to speak for her child who is about to be married off. Exactly. So you can never underestimate the importance of education. And for me, it spoke about moving from just, speaking to action. We've seen how you've, gone into this grassroots to carry out intervention. Very interesting. And I think that every organization should also, imbibe that culture. And most importantly, the government should also prioritize education holistically. Just because we're wrapping up the conversation now, I would like to ask this: anything else that you feel we should hear before we move to a different session and then wrap it up? We need to make a lot of noise. The CSOs make a lot of noise. But don't you see that was making? I mean, we're making so much. Make more noise. Tell stories instead of giving numbers, because I feel like they are used to hearing these numbers, and it's now become like a normal thing. I agree. I don't want to mention name, but we have visited one prominent person in the government space, and then when we told him of the numbers, then it was around, I think, 12 million or so, and then he says, were those in Islamic school included? Do you understand? Is that the crux of the conversation? But we said we are talking about education, formal education. You understand? Like Western education, like they call it. But he said Arabic school is also an education. Do you understand where his own mindset is going? And then when you talk about this Sangaya school that maybe going to Arabic schools to teach, believe me, it takes a lot of effort.
It does.
Before you convince the Malams. Because they also use these children to get source of
yes. So in fact, let me cut you short. I'm sorry. There was a meeting that we had, a gathering of CSOs. You were trying to reform Sangaya education. And people were talking about their experience. We learned that some of these malams, there's the name they call them. Alaramas, yes. That's even when they, you try to give them some form of intervention and you leave, they will still insist that those children go and beg, because for them it's like mandatory. Yes, they need to bring those tiny 20 naira, 30 naira here.
And now the children are being given targets. So as you are going to beg, don't bring us to them here. Make sure you bring some
child. Yes. So what are they supposed to do?
Exactly. What they need to do is just to either steal or insist, even when they knock. You know how they do that? How they do it by the door, they sing and beg. And if you don't listen to them, they continue until you listen.
It's so sad.
Very
sad. It feels like these children are being used as an instrument now.
And it might break your heart to know that when they come with this food, they are not allowed to taste it. It's for the Alarama and his malams around him. So they have so much have power over these children, and they feel like without them they can't even live. So if you are bringing the Sangaya education and intervention for a Western education, why will I allow the kids that have been providing feeding for me and my family to sit down and learn ABC?
So, but what if the Alaramas justify it and say that this is what is applicable in the Quran? Is that it? Is that what is applicable?
Even the CSOs, usually when we are going, even if there are no Muslims around us, we usually go with people that are very versatile in the Quran. We all know the basic teachings of the Quran. You understand? And then we make them understand. But they tell us that their parents, the children's parents, brought them to learn Arabic. You understand? So them giving that permission for us to teach, they must seek permission from the parents too. And believe me, they have 500 children. Where will they go to? Some even drop their children and then leave. That will be all. You will go to that Sangaya school and see a small child of 3 years. Tell me, where has that led us to? A 3-year-old child.
And they end up on the road,
Exactly. Really looking very unkempt, malnutritioned and all that. It is really sad.
It is. And for me, it's just, going back to say that as individuals, as members of the community, as government, as CSOs, as media, we all have a role to play. As parents, we all have a role to play. We can call on the government from morning to evening, but if we don't fulfill our own parts, at the end of the day, there's still going to be a gap, there's still going to be a divide. And just to quickly wrap up, I know that we've had conversation about the girl child, but a lot of times when we're speaking, they say, how about the boy child? And my conversation is always, there's a gap. The gap is wide until we get to a point where the gap is even, then we can then start to talk about the boy child. But I just want to hear from you as well. Do you think that the boy child is also marginalized in terms of this conversation that we've had around education? Are they also on the receiving end? Because I know that there are households where they also send the boy child to hawk and to beg, and that's not an excuse. Like, that is not justifiable. Just because he's a boy child and we feel like he can secure himself outside is not an excuse. A child, and a child should be treated as a child, and a child should go to school. So I would like to hear from you what you think about the boy child in this conversation.
Now that you've started mentioning that the boys are being marginalized too, I think when you look at it, you will see from the end of when you visit a family of, say, maybe 5 siblings, and then maybe 2 are boys and 3 are girls. You will notice that the 2 boys, even if they are not being taken to school, but they are being empowered by maybe either learning a handwork or an entrepreneurship. You understand?
Yeah.
So I also feel like that is an empowerment given to them. But for girls, they usually use them, you understand, to either hawk, house chores and
right.
So when you speak about marginalization, maybe to some extent, but I don't see it that way. And also us at Fairway, whatever we are doing, even though we work for girls and women, we also give a small percentage to the boys. Yes, because recently when we did the SRGBV training, some of the teachers were invited, and we even visited some schools wherein we set up a Tuseme club whereby any child that is facing gender-based violence around the school can speak out. And then we realized that some boys also said they face those kind of violences from women, from girls. And they said when we leave, after those kind of sensitization, speaking to the girls on how to speak out when you are being violated and all that, the girls will now have like more power to violate the boys. You understand? So it's like when you are trying to settle one particular problem, you are braiding another.
The vicious circle,
Exactly.
literally.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, I don't feel they are being marginalized for now.
She said, "From those are her words, not mine." But thank you, Amina, for that. I'll just run over these questions that I would like to leave the viewers with. And the first one is: if our leaders send their children abroad, what does this say about the state of education in Nigeria? Do you think that it can ever be prioritized? Secondly, how are we supposed to prepare for a future when blackboards from 1995, are still being used, and there are, toilets that don't, I won't say there are toilets that don't flush, but interestingly, there are schools that don't even have toilets.
Not speak of like a separate toilet for the girls.
Before we can even get to a separate toilet, there needs to be a toilet. There are schools that we've been to in Bauchi where, Amina, there is no Bangida, there's no Bangida is toilet, there's no toilet. So these children have to go into the houses of their neighbors. And Nigeria, you go there today, you go there tomorrow they ask you, is it only my house? Do you want to, what is your problem? So they have to go back home. So if these children are, seeing their periods, there's no privacy, there's no toilets to even start with. So these are the conversations. And the last question, why is it normal to have children clustered like sardine in a class, with no single textbook, when a government official is in his fancy AC, in his office, seated in his babariga, doing the barest minimum, while children are suffering? Are these things?
And then when you ask, they will tell you education is free. How is it free when the parents still need to buy textbooks, uniform, and even pay tuition fee?
Aside tuition fee, they even put charges for photography. There's a school that we went to in Ningi local government where the girl was, asked to not write her junior WAEC because of 3,000 naira. Amina, I wept that day. 3,000 naira. That you cannot even. How much data can you even buy with 3K? 3K cannot even buy you bread now. That is just the reality of it. 3K. And guess what? Education, they say, is free, but in that 3K there is charges for invigilator, charges for photography, and the audacity that the school administrator had to justify that was crazy to me.
Well,
he said that. How are they supposed to pay the invigilators?
Oh, that was what they said.
That was what he said.
So
yeah,
it was justifying
from within the community.
Oh, okay.
And let me even shock you. There are schools that they say that teachers are being sent to from high above to teach, and because they know that these ones have some political backing, even if they come to school or even if they don't come to school, cannot report. A Sarki of a local government was telling us this. He said he knows that. He said a lot of class.
So what has he done about it? Nothing. Because they are died.
Like a former.
So you can see the problem is not just centered around the parents.
It's not. It's not. It's the decay. The impunity is deep inside.
Yes.
It's really deep inside. It's unfortunate. So I would like to wrap up the conversation. This question that I've asked, I hope that we go back home and think about it. And I would ask again, if 20 million out of school children, if this number is not enough to cause panic, if it's not enough for us to run helter-skelter, if it's not enough for us to, ensure that education is prioritized with the speed of light, then I don't know where we're headed as a nation. I don't know where we're headed as a people, because I want to have a daughter and I want my daughter to be able to go through a good school in Nigeria. Mind you, not everyone can afford to send their child outside the country. How much is tickets to even Africa?
Even private schools are so expensive now that some people
Some schools collect dollars. Oh, let me shock you. Some schools collect pounds and dollars. So what are we saying? So I feel like more needs to be done, and not just in terms of policy, in terms of implementing, in terms of action, in terms of budgetary allocation. There needs to be a total overhaul, in the educational sector, so Nigeria can move. At least let's not carry last. If your child should come back home with last position, won't you use cane and flog that child? So why are we not using cane to flog the situation in Nigeria? Why is everybody relaxed? I think because it's convenient for them. Maybe because their children are not feeling the heat, of the current reality of education. So, but thank you, Amina, for this brilliant and wonderful and unfiltered conversation that you shared with us. It was very interesting to hear from you and to tap from your wealth of knowledge. Thank you very much, Amina, once again. Thank you, viewers. The next conversation might not be this demure and very mindful. it might be bad moves, because we in this podcast we like war. As long as war is going to move us from one place to the other. So thank you very much for joining us in this series of on this conversation, this episode, and we look forward to engaging with you again on the fourth episode. My name is Alex James Michelia once again, and have a blessed day. Thank you.